Hello and welcome to Do the Right Thing, your weekly writing prompt podcast. I'm Alexandra.
And I'm Jarvis.
Jarvis and I were aspiring writers with one simple and very common problem. We never actually took the time to sit down and write.
So to solve this issue, we are issuing a challenge. Each week you sit down and write a complete short story using 3 of 4 randomly generated words.
Then we come on the podcast, we read a story, we talk about what we learned in reading it, and then we talk about the rest of the story sent in by you wonderful listeners.
Exactamundo. We're simply here to help you do the right thing.
A doof media production. I have some bad news, Jarvis. I have some terrible news.
What's the bad news?
Oh no! So over on Pale Reflections, the podcast covering Wild Bow's work, Pale, they had a live stream yesterday actually, which you can go and listen to. They just uploaded the audio, I think. I'm not entirely sure, but it's on our Twitch if you want to go see the whole stream. The first half of it is just a normal episode. Don't watch that if you are not ready for spoilers. But the second half, I think, is pretty much spoilers free, where they just did a bunch of activities related to the book and the world. And one thing they did is that they each ate a spoonful of brown milk. So brown milk is not a real thing.
Brown milk?
Brown milk, not chocolate milk. Brown milk. So So it's a reference to a substance in the story where a woman, to sort of save time with like taking care of the kids at her daycare and the dogs at her dog care, because she's doing both. She just takes the baby formula for the babies and mixes it with dog food, and then she just feeds the babies and the dogs the brown milk, which is dog food and milk. And
that's so disgusting.
So in reference to that, our wonderful cast members on Pale Reflections, in a very large chalice, they did mix dog food and milk, and did each consume a spoonful on camera. I don't know if they actually swallowed it because they looked like they were about to throw up immediately. But
okay, so it wasn't good.
No, that's my bad news, and then I witnessed it as well. They are certified mad lads, the Aussies over there. So at least we have that. But definitely. Yes. I wish it didn't happen.
That can't be good for their stomach. Like, think about the possible heartburn that this brown milk could have given them. It
was vegetarian dog food.
Okay, that's fine. Yeah.
So at least there was no dog flesh in there, flesh for dogs.
Yeah. Well, you know what? I'm drinking a bit of brown milk right now. Why? A tall glass of coffee with a little bit of milk in it.
Here's a question. Do you think it would taste better if it was cat food?
If it was cat food, well,
they do have a more refined palate.
Maybe because the like cat that lives with me now, her food doesn't look awful. It is pellet food, but some of that wet food does look on par with a lot of tuna that I've eaten. So if I were to, let's say, instead of doing coffee, whipped cream and caramel, if I were to switch out the whipped cream with cat food, I think it wouldn't
which
be...
has cream in it, right?
Yeah. I think it wouldn't be that bad. It might taste a little gamey
with some little chunks of tuna in there, like boba. It's kind of like boba.
Yeah. Yes. Oh yeah. All frozen chunks of tuna at the very bottom. Yeah.
Yeah. Gross. That's gross. Okay. Well. Is there anything we want to talk about before we get into this episode, Jarvis?
Well, I want to say, as you probably know, this episode is a day late. And it is because I have been quite busy. School has been throwing me in the ring, putting a blindfold on me, and then just jumping me with 17 guys. It's not good. But yeah, so that's why I've been quite busy. That's why this episode is a day late. But we're not $1 short.
Okay, sure. Who's the story that we're going to be reading this week?
Yes, so as you already know, this month, the lovely month of February, the theme is Unrequited Love. The words were inside, log, hen, and short. And the story we will be reading today is by Just Stand 8460 with Sarah and the Wolves.
All right. So this is Sarah and the Wolves by Just Stand 8460. Inside of a short, stubby log next to the large boulder, in the clearing at the bottom of the hill, deep in the forest, lived a hen named Sarah. She was a busy hen, always coming and going, dressing her log with different mosses and foliage to match the season, the holiday, or her mood. Now it was adorned with a rich emerald acrocarpus, complemented by a branch of elderberries which hung over her door to greet her when she went out and when she returned each day. Sarah lived alone, and being alone she was always afraid of the dark and of the wolves that stalked the forest. They came by every Thursday to demand her eggs. Otherwise, they would eat her instead. That was the arrangement she had made with the lead wolf years ago. She produced 3 eggs a day, which was quite a lot of work for one chicken. She often wondered whether having a big, strong rooster around to protect her would keep the wolves away. The problem was there were no other chickens around, let alone a rooster who was available and interested. One rainy Thursday, as expected, Sarah heard the forceful voice of the lead wolf, Tristan, echoing through the trees, announcing their approach. "And if you can't keep up, your father will know of your poor behavior." He seemed to be talking to another member of his pack. "Good morning, Miss Chicken. Are you home?" He directed his staged politeness at the side of her log home. "Right with you, dear," she replied, playing along with a diplomatic ruse. "I was just collecting this morning's lay for you." "Wonderful. I thought we could make this a quick visit, as I am currently training a new recruit." His tone changed from melodious to annoyed as his voice was thrown over his shoulder, "who seems to need some special lessons on the definition of silence." She could hear his voice bouncing off the trees and imagined him fixing those cold eyes on his pack with a threatening stare. She only had that icy gaze on her one time, the day she had met him. Each day since, she thanked her lucky feathers that she was a fertile and regular egg layer. It haunted her to think what would happen if she suddenly grew slack in providing for Tristan's demands. A chill ran through her and provided the final push she needed. She sat up from her nest, hitched up her small cotton breeches, rearranged her floral dress and white apron, and collected her morning egg. Giving it a quick wipe down, she placed it into a lined wicker basket on top of the others and turned the knob of her front door. As the hinges gave a small squeak to announce her emergence from her oak home, she was struck by 2 things simultaneously. First, she noticed Tristan was bristled and cranky. It was a wild card whether his mood would be amiable or hostile when he came each week. The second thing was the new recruit he had mentioned before. He did not look anything like the other wolves in his pack. He stood about 4 inches shorter, his fur was slightly longer, and his shoulders were hung a bit lower, in a casual manner. The top of his head was a coif of bright blue hair, brushed to the side to cover his left ear. Around his neck hung a red strap of leather with holes punched through and tied on the side, probably picked up from some nearby farm. His eyes were half-masked, emitting an aloof attitude. They were what struck her the most. When he turned his head toward her, his eyelids gave a slight twitch and went wide. They were not yellow like all wolves she had seen before, but hazel. Their eye contact sent a slight tingle through her knees and a flutter in her belly. His smile was warm and convivial, and he gave her an almost indiscernible wink. "What a lovely bunch of elderberries that is!" The lead wolf's voice brought her back to the present. She turned her attention to Tristan. I wouldn't say no to a snap of those being added to this week's collections. This was not a request, as she well knew. Why, thank you, good sir. I would be pleased to share them with you. She quickly broke off the most plump-looking berries, poured them into the basket, and placed it on the ground between her and the lead wolf, then picked up the empty basket he had brought from last week's collection. Enjoy. Tristan turned his head to the side and called out to his pack. We run. And then back to Sarah. Until next week, Miss Chicken. He turned to leave and led the pack into the trees. Craig, I want you up next to me. I will not have you falling behind. His voice trailed off as he bounded through the ferns and brush littering the rim of her clearing. He was directing his command at the recruit. Sarah realized she had been staring at him. I will be very delighted to host you again. Goodbye. She called out faintly, then turned to rush inside. She closed the door gently and fell backward against it. Her heart was pounding. Her breathing had increased noticeably. She felt perplexed, but suddenly lifted up and alive. Those hazel eyes swam in front of her. What is wrong with you, Sarah? He is a wolf, a vicious killer, and probably half your age. What makes you think he would be interested in a squat little bird like you? The idea was so preposterous she was startled to hear herself laugh out loud. However, she could not shake her feeling of attraction to the long fur, the brushed hair, and the hazel eyes that looked back at her when she lay in bed each night. For once, she was looking forward to the next Thursday. It made no sense to her. He was a wolf, and probably thought she looked tasty. There could be no gain in pursuing any sort of affection for Craig. With all of her might, each day she tried to change how she was feeling and put it far from her mind. With luck, he'll have been kicked out of the pack, and I will never see him again. On the following Thursday morning, Sarah was so nervous about the arrival of the wolves that she could not lay her morning egg. They would certainly notice. If they did not count them that morning before leaving, which they never did, then they would come with new threats the following week. As the hour of their normal time arrived and passed, Sarah became exceedingly distraught. Her heart was in her throat with anxiety. 2 hours passed, and there was no sound of the wolves. Sarah spent the day sitting and standing by her door, frantically rocking on her heels and peeking out of her window, or trying to busy herself with chores indoors, and not daring to leave for fear she would miss them. She could not lay a single egg all day. As the evening came, she began to hear their quiet footsteps in the distance drawing near. This time, she did not hear the voice of Tristan, but a different one. Instead of the usual booming baritone shouting commands for the halt and dressing of the ranks, it was a higher-pitched tenor with a slight lilt at the end of each sentence. Hello, Miss Chicken. We have arrived. So sorry for the late hour. Are you home? This new voice was strange and slightly unsettling. She reached for the knob and pulled, the slight squeak of the hinges preceding her. The wolf who stood her was not Tristan, as she was expecting. It was Craig. He sat before her with his eyes in a lazy, relaxed position and a welcoming curve to his lips. This was far from what she anticipated, having strived all week to banish thoughts of him from her mind. Here he was, sitting before her. Hello there, she croaked, clearing her throat. I was not expecting... Me? He interrupted. Of course. I imagine seeing me today instead of Tristan does come as a surprise. Yes, a surprise. A delightful surprise. She tried to make that sound courteous and not flirtatious. He gave no impression of the latter effect. Is Tristan ill today? This might explain their lateness as well. He met with a small accident earlier today, unfortunately. I fear he will no longer be blessing us with his presence in the pack, as it is now under new leadership. His tone took on a softer, emotional breathiness, which might remind one of a condolence to a friend. Oh, my feathers, that's... Her mind raced as she reached for the next words. She hoped Tristan's departure would mark the end of their arrangement and she would live in freedom from this bullish oppression. I am sorry to hear that. And who is the pack's leader now? I am. As is customary, the strongest wolf must lead. I suppose I proved the stronger this morning. You see, Tristan simply pressed me beyond my capacity to allow. His consistent chiding and criticisms pushed me to the brink, and I simply... His face gave a slight satisfied look as he briefly lifted his eyes to the spans above her log home. Brought him down. He returned his attention to Sarah. Rest assured, you are safe from him. But that is the cause of our lateness today. I promise you it won't happen again. He gave her a disarming smile, which sent the same tingle through her knees as before. His teeth were beautiful and white up close, with a small and charming gap in the front. I see. Shock racked Sarah to the bones. This smaller, younger wolf had bested the much larger and domineering Tristan? Her hopes for escaping her hardships were starting to rise. Well, here are your eggs for the week. His quick gaze swept across the basket as she placed it in between them. Scooping it up, he paused and simply stated, It seems a bit light, doesn't it? He looked at her askance. I fell, she grasped for the quickest excuse. Carrying an egg to my basket yesterday, I dropped it. She lied, hoping it would garner sympathy rather than a threat from this considerably more polite pack leader. With a nervous titter, she followed it with, Clumsy me, so sorry. Oh, dear me, how sad. I hope you are all right. He looked concerned. I am. It is only a small sprain in my wrist. It is broken, I'm afraid. The egg. My wrist will mend. She smiled slightly, bouncing her eyes to the side. Well, I hope so. The next moment was such a sudden rush of motion that she scarcely knew what was happening. He closed the gap between them in one stride and stood with his face 2 inches from her beak. He looked at her softly and stated flatly, That will cost you 1 more egg next week. She was so startled by his quickness and the turn of his words, she barely had a chance to gasp as he thrust his jaws around her foot and throttled her quickly and tossed her to the side with ease. Let's try to be more careful while moving about the home, shall we? His tone lost none of its softness. His face betrayed none of its original calmness. Only his words conveyed this message of a most sinister and threatening intent. It was clear to Sarah that Tristan had been bested by someone not to be trifled with. Her heart pounded, and she realized that her life was not going to be any easier. Yes, thank you, she panted. She felt a small pain in her heart. I will be more careful. With a gentle tilt of his head, he replied, Wonderful. So glad to see you again. To the others, he announced, Let's move, my friends.
Well, all right. So this is a really great story that gives us a nice little highs and lows, and I really love these characters that are at play here. Overall, I just really love that this is perfectly capturing the concept of unrequited love, especially towards the first half with this chicken having feelings for a wolf. And I just really love how even though the characters in this are animals, there's just so many human moments really poking through that really made me feel for this chicken, especially when the second more sinister wolf shows up. So yeah, even though this was quite a longer one than we're used to reading live on the pod, it was definitely 100% worth it because I love this really tight and complete story.
Yeah, it's definitely reminiscent of a lot of different things. Of like all those old stories with talking animals that are just like people.
The big bad wolf, yeah.
Walker by Faith, I think, mentions the Toad and Frog books. You know the ones?
Yes.
Yeah.
Those
kind of like that.
Hit.
Yeah, except a lot darker, I think.
This is a bit.
Yeah. And I like the sort of dynamic and the issue that's coming up here. So there's a couple of things that like I really like and I wish I saw more of. One, the unrequited love that's going on here, the sort of fantasy that this hen is having. There's a little bit of that, and I feel like it definitely sets up this sort of following some of the tropes here, follows the like, a prey animal that's in love with a like predator. And it's sort of like it's kind of like a 50 Shades of Grey kind of sort of feeling here. It's like, oh no, it's dangerous. Oh no, she's going to be exploited, but maybe, the predator does have like a heart of gold. And I think it's
like Zootopia in a less erotic sense.
Well, I mean, it's Zootopia, Jarvis. What do you mean less erotic?
Oh yeah, sorry. There is that whole scene where they go into that nudist club. So
yeah. Wait, do they really? I don't remember.
Yeah, they do.
Oh my god, that's incredible.
Do you not remember this moment?
No, I don't.
Oh, okay. You need to rewatch Zootopia.
I can't wait. Yeah, no. Actually, speaking of, I did definitely get some vibes of some other modern, like anthropomorphic animal tropes, like the second wolf Craig has the blue hair, right? And like that's not something that exists in the old tropes, but I still liked it in this one. But anyway, I think I would have enjoyed more of those feelings. There's just a little bit of a hint of them in the second part when Craig shows up again, but perhaps some more playing around with that might have been good. Maybe Craig like noticing her feelings and maybe playing with them a little bit. Well, actually, a sort of a different angle. I really liked. It definitely was like some subtle differences between the two wolves. I definitely got that Tristan was like a bit like older and maybe like a bit rougher with his like demands, but he also had this like diplomatic and polite sort of like approach, right?
Almost suave way.
Yeah. But I feel like Craig also kind of has that, but just slightly different. And I did very much like the like introduction and like how it's done and sort of like just the feeling of that interaction when he first comes up. But I do wonder if they were a bit more different, if if Tristan was just the suave one, not Tristan, sorry, if Craig was the suave one and Tristan, the first wolf that we see was just like demanding and rough, like with just barely, some politeness, mostly like showing teeth and like, growling or just like, where are my eggs, being very brutish. And so that when Craig comes back and Tristan's gone and Craig is being all polite and such, we do, grow some hope of like, oh, maybe this guy is really nice. But then we do have revealed that he does have the same brutishness and malice in him as Tristan did. It's just hidden a little bit better. I think that would have been interesting.
Yeah, and I think that separation that you are talking about would definitely aid in maybe having a nice little good cop, bad cop dynamic between them. But real quick to step back on what you said about the emotional crux of this, which does feed into this month's theme of unrequited love. I do feel that too, that it's sort of relegated to one section of this story. And as we hop into the second section, all that is kind of missing. We're not really getting that sort of character monologue about like, ooh, I shouldn't, but he's bad. You know, like we don't get those moments later on, which I think would work well. You know, especially if Just Stan wanted to go back for a second version of that, is sort of linking that throughout, so that this main character has a solid voice throughout this and like stakes within it. Instead of us just seeing what is happening to them. And you know, I say this because that section was accomplished really well. The character monologues, along with your description, is definitely some of the best parts about this. I just would have liked to see those sprinkled throughout a like already really good and solid story.
Yeah, I think that might just be like, I do like the sort of plot stuff that's going on here. I like the situation, but most of all, yeah, I like the sort of complicated feelings and fears that are coming up here, and I want more with that. And also, just those tropes are very fun. Yeah, I'm kind of a sucker for it, of the like, I shouldn't, but I want to, but I shouldn't, I can't, but I will. It's great, and like, you know, someone like walking into danger on purpose. Those are definitely some of the romances that I kind of love. So yeah, the sort of like walking into danger. It's kind of like you can also play with it either way, right? Like either play the trope normally, which is just like, oh, but he does have a heart of gold, and sort of like the, you know, walk into danger, but like it was worth it, right? That was a kind of bravery. But you can also subvert it and be like, actually, no, this was a terrible idea, and she gets devoured, right? Like,
yeah. Which, I mean, this story is definitely, at least from what I might see, going down that second path, seeing how Craig still has, like, as you said, that same malice within him.
Yeah, like, you know, if it was played with the trope normally, it would be like, he does do a scary thing of like, you know, threatening her, but it's just like putting teeth close to her throat or something, but not actually like shaking her around, not actually do anything, just like knowing that he can.
Yeah, and then also doing it because maybe he like has to, because Tristan like is his older brother, yada yada yada.
Yeah, and like watching him. Yes. There's a lot of things to do with that, and of course there's a lot of other, I don't know, angles and things to play with that. Like, I very much like the emotional center to this, and the playing around with that is the most enjoyable part to me.
Yeah, definitely. Well, all right. I think that's everything that I have to say about this story. It was a great one. We loved reading it. Do you have anything else to say before we move on?
No, except just to say that playing with tropes like this, not just the romantic one that we just spent a bit talking about, but also just the trope of like talking animals and sort of the simple nature of it, I think is a really, really, I think this is a great example of why those tropes are so good. It's just because you can set up these situations so easily, and just work off of those. And so I think this was a very good choice just to put them into as anthropomorphic animals and in the forest, and make it sort of a storybook interaction.
Yeah, definitely. And to piggyback off of that real quick, even like along with it, writer side being easy to, you know, set up any sort of situation through these tropes. Reader side, it is providing them with familiar tropes to where they can very easily get into your story. Because like I know when like I was reading this and I said, this you know, anthropomorphic animal thing is similar to, you know, A, B, and C, and I liked A, B, and C, so I get further into it, you know. So like overall, I think it's a really great tactic that you use. Yeah,
it's a very cute aesthetic. So.
Very cute. But all right, I think it's high time to roll into our listener submitted story section. So, thank you so much to Ace of Sword, Morgan LaA, Just Stand 8460, No Goodbye, and Walker by Faith by submitting your story. And the first story we will be talking about this week is by Ace of Sword with rust peacefully.
Yeah, this is a very cool little experiment as well. This is related to the ogre story that Ace of Sword wrote last week, this time from the perspective of the human. It doesn't have as much to do with the ogress. It's actually more about a man who went traveling and now has come back to where the clan used to be, which had long since been on the decline, and there's kind of no one left, and he's sort of just taking care of the gravestones and trying to take care of himself. And so he's just kind of we get a bit of world building, we get a bit of just character background, and maybe a little bit of insight on who he is. It is just a bit of exploration of these concepts, I think.
Yeah, and I think in the same way that's really why I enjoy this story. Of course, it is a continuation of a previous entry, and I think it continues it really well. I do like a lot of the tone work within this, and the diction being used here is really nice and is evocative. That really fills out that tone. And yeah, I see a comment by Ace of Sword that says that they think that they might have tried to do too many things in the 30 minutes, which I know that is a really hard balance to strike within any story. Is what does the audience need to know, so that when I get to the scene that I've been writing towards from the beginning, they will be fully on board, so that the scene comes across as well as it or as meaningful as it means to me. But I think within this story, there is a balance. I do love the world building in here and the setup, and I think it will be useful if you do choose to go into a third entry in this series, so overall, great job, Ace of Sword.
Yeah, I definitely agree with the other part of their comment, saying that the important part is that they did write and kept their streak going, and I completely agree. And I think no matter what you put out, just the fact that you sat down and wrote something, I think is important.
Yeah, definitely. But all right, up next is by Morgan Le with an untitled story.
Yes. This one's really interesting. A little bit more abstract. This woman has been horror. This woman has been watching this crack in her kitchen. It started extremely innocuous, just like a little crack in the linoleum. But now it's clearly gotten a lot. It's much more than that. And we see that it's expanded beyond her house to the street as well. And the parts inside of the crack are just shadowy black, as if there is just a void inside of them. And she finds that some kids are standing around this other child that has fallen into the crack, and he is just hanging on. Basically, he only his torso and his arms are keeping from falling. So she comes closer, and in a moment of great danger and panic, and there's definitely very high tension, she's able to pull him out, and they sort of decide what to do next afterwards.
I love the mystery of this crack, how it starts off as a really small thing, and then obviously this quickly turns into some sort of worldly crack, like a crack in reality, which to me is such a interesting concept to explore. And I really like the angle that Morgan Le took with this story. In the beginning, there was this really great description, but I really liked when we did get to the scene of the child, like halfway in the void, and then I just felt all that tension and that panic and that worry and that anxiety from that moment. I think that moment was really well pulled off.
Yeah, it really was scary.
Yes, that's very true. It really was like terrifying because we don't know what's in this void. That child could have fallen forever for you, if you know all we knew. But at the very end, I did feel a great sense of relief when she finally did pull the child up. So yeah, I was completely invested in this story and its concept. So really great job, Morgan Le A.
Yeah, with the crack, it really felt like it almost felt like he was almost being like sucked in just because of like how easy it was to continue falling.
Yeah.
And I wasn't sure if like, you know, having passed like the threshold of this crack, if like his lower body still existed at all. Like I half expected her to pull and then just like he doesn't have yeah, he's just like intestines spilling out or something. I was pretty worried. I really felt like anything could happen at this point in the story. Definitely thought that like a child being lost to the void could definitely happen in this short story. Yeah, it was a bit frightening, and it definitely has a consequence of like it expanding from that tiny crack and sort of the like the ominous nature being built up from there. I think was great. One thing I felt like description kind of fell away as we got into that action of being out and outside. I really did like what we got, and of course when the action's going on, I felt like that was the important thing. But there's that final like image where she looks up at the crack that extends down asphalt up another house and into the sky. I thought that was fascinating. I felt I needed a little bit more just to understand what that looks like. Like is it like in the air? Do we see the crack in the air, or is it something that like extends to the horizon and then up, right?
Yeah.
And I wasn't quite sure. I really liked it.
Yeah,
though.
same. Yeah, and granted that last image too was an image that really stuck with me. Also, one final thing that I really want to say, as we all probably know, this is a pretty solid and accomplished story for the quick story that it was trying to tell. I just want to commend you in saying that for a story this solid. I really like how concise a lot of the prose are. Like it is a really quick read. To where, you know, adding that little description that I know you were really looking for towards the end, would it really probably push this story even a page further, you know? So overall, like really clean and concise prose.
For sure.
Well, all right. Thank you so much to Morgan Le A. And up next is by No Goodbye with The Way Back.
Yeah, this is another lovely story from No Goodbye, focusing on those melancholy feelings that they seem to really specialize in. We have this character, Merida. She's lost in the woods, and it kind of seems like she's actually in true danger. She might not make it back. And she's missing her friend, Luca, who has passed away. We're not sure when or where that happened. I think it's before this hike, though. But she wanders, and eventually she comes across a cabin where there's this woman there who looks like her friend, but older, but not her friend. And they have a conversation, and we sort of like get this sort of, you know, mystic feeling of, you know, an important sort of magical encounter. As I'm going to call her the witch. I don't think she is like a witch, or maybe she is. I don't know. But the witch just tells her that she can stay here and rest, as she can sort of mourn her friend here, but she does have to go eventually. And yeah, it's just a lovely moment as Merida sort of reflects on this friend that she loved and now cannot love, and now cannot love her back because they're gone.
Yeah. So I love the sentimentality of this story. I can tell that this character of Meredith, I can feel so much of the want for this old relationship, which I mean is definitely something that really tugs on the heartstrings, very, very much so. And I love how this, of course, perfectly fits into this month's theme, but in a different way than I'm used to really seeing. You know,
yeah, unrequited because they're gone, not because Luca doesn't love her.
Exactly, yeah. Which is another aspect of this unrequited love concept that isn't really talked about too much, and how, like, yes, they are gone, and then the love that you shared for that person is gone also. Or I guess not gone in a sense, but you can't express that. Yeah, like, overall, this is a really solid and really, it's a really solid story that is so super focused on the emotional crux of this. It really takes you through this really sentimental story that I mean I know I was almost tearing up, you know, thinking about people within my own life that I have a similar feeling for. So yeah, this is a really good story, and thank you for submitting it.
Yeah, I want to also again point out the use of a well-known trope, right? The cabin in the woods with the mysterious witch that like gives good advice. I think we've read a couple stories on this podcast that were also like that, and I think it's just a very powerful thing.
Yeah.
No Goodbye also mentions that they were very loosely inspired by Calypso of Greek myth, and I that inspired me to think about that myth. I actually really, really love it. I remember in Percy Jackson and the Olympians, there's a section where the main character also goes to Calypso's island and has the same sort of thing, you know, falling in love, but like having to leave and never being able to, you know, to return. And I think, I don't know, it's just like there's a lot of feelings in that. And I'm very interested in it, and maybe I might explore the concept myself a bit because it's just interesting. So returning a lot to returning to the older story structures and plot devices and stuff, I think that's a great place to look for inspiration, because the reason that they lasted so long through oral tradition is because they are such powerful evocations of certain emotions. So
they have great staying power. Our last story for this week is by Walker by Faith, with The One That Stayed Too Long.
So this is interesting. There's this character sort of reminiscing about this woman that they invite into their life that just stayed too long. That she was older, and they liked her, but didn't really like love her, I guess. And it's just a slow progression through the years, as we sort of discover, as this woman made the place her own and painted the place and such. And at the very, very end, after being like, okay, so this character clearly just like didn't want her around and was just like too much of a coward to like leave, we get revealed that this is like a draft for her eulogy that her husband has been writing of 33 years. And this is wonderful, humorous reveal as the funeral director kind of says, yeah, can you just, you know, is there literally anyone that could do a eulogy that is not you? Because clearly you are not capable of writing a normal, good eulogy. We finished that, yeah, the son is going to do it instead.
I really do enjoy this story and how it has this sort of unexpected sad ending. I think, it's really unexpected, but it's also like on brand for a Walker by Faith. This is, of course, another really, really solid one, and I do love how we get this sort of comical-esque character set up, only for us to get to the end and be hit with this emotional brick.
Interesting, because that's not the. For me, it was like this character's an asshole.
Well, yeah,
more than anything,
asshole. But I think in stories like this, maybe it's just my own reading, but I try my best to sympathize with these assholes, right? And come and try to understand what lies beneath that assholery. But yeah.
I could definitely see that being a worthy read. I just felt like, just like they're, I don't know. I don't have a lot of, I don't like the kind of guy who does this, because I was that kind of guy at some point, of just like not actually liking the person that you're with and just kind of being too cowardly to push them away and sort of like blaming her. Like there's a point where he's like, yeah, it's probably my fault a little bit, but like he's definitely getting this thing of like, oh, it's her fault for not picking up these cues or whatever. And then they were together 33 years. Oof. And he was just like, this is fine, I guess. And like this sort of like unbalanced thing where she was like head over heels for him, and he didn't, reciprocate the same feelings at all. And now she's dead, and for his eulogy for her, he makes the eulogy just like about him and how he didn't actually like her all that much. And like he got some like feelings eventually, but it was basically out of just like familiarity rather than like an actual, passion or anything. Yeah.
Which, I mean, I think like, say with me, I feel that I've definitely been on both ends of this sort of relationship, having someone who's head over heels with you and you not being down for them. And then the like other day, and yeah, homie is a asshole straight throughout, especially when it comes to the eulogy. So I don't know. When I was reading this, I was trying to really dig in deeper and see why are they a asshole like this? Because there's a reason why they stayed, even if it's that they're just comfortable in it, and even though it's not exciting with them, they're comfortable. I don't know. I just wanted to read in a bit more, but it's kind of hard to do that when someone is such a straight ass.
Yeah, for sure.
So thank you very much, Walker by Faith, for submitting your story. And we would also like to give a big old do the right thing thank you to everyone who did submit their story. So thank you very much to Ace of Sword,
Morgan LeA.
Thank you to Just Dan 8460.
Thank you, No Goodbye.
And thank you to Walker by Faith. We would also like to say thank you to everyone who left comments. Leaving comments not only under your own story, but under someone else's can condense all of your own feelings on your story for everyone else to see. But you're also providing someone else with crucial feedback that can only improve them and you as a writer. So thank you very much to Walker by Faith, Morgan LeA, Just Stan 8460, No Goodbye, and Ace of Sword. Thank you so much for leaving comments.
Yeah. And there was some wonderful back and forth every single time that I see that stuff. I think it's really heartening, and so we really, really appreciate that.
If you want to be like all of these wonderful writers and submit your story to Do the Right Thing, you can do that by going to Reddit at /r/Do the Right Thing. All you have to do is send out for 30 minutes and write a complete short story using 3 or 4 randomly generated words.
That's right. And if you want to see the words as soon as they come out, the best place to do that would be to follow us on Twitter at RightThingCast. There you get the announcements for new words and announcements for stuff about scheduling, like the show being a day late. And also you can have notifications from other stuff on the Doof Network when we retweet that stuff. And get a little bit of insight that way. Or if there's other stuff going on with either of our co-hosts, then we'll announce it there as well.
Exactly. And if you want to support us and everyone else in Doof Media, you can do that by donating to the Doof Media Patreon. All you have to do is donate $10 or more per month to get access to exclusive bonus content.
That's right. We're going to be doing an episode on Neon Genesis Evangelion. I know that we have had a pattern of not doing a lot of bonus content episodes, but I need to talk about this show. So I'm going to definitely make it happen. Because it was really, really affecting when I finished that. I think we did already talk about that. But we also are continuing our other show, me and Sebastian, The View from Halfway Down. We've had a really, really good time recording those episodes and watching BoJack Horseman together and such. And like I said recently, there was the Pale Reflections stream on our Twitch, wherein our wonderful Australian mad lads ate some brown milk. And So if you keep in touch with the Doof Media Network, you can see that kind of stuff as soon as it comes out. Yeah.
Well, all right. I think it's high time to roll into next week's words. So, the words for next week are wall, copyright, South, and forum. And this is also the last week for our February topic.
Unrequited love. Yeah, so if you haven't written a story about unrequited love, consider doing so. I think it's a feeling ripe with a lot of interpretations, as we've seen in the past couple of weeks, and this week in particular, just the different angles that you can take it. Okay, so wall, which is a structure that is built to enclose or keep out things. So like a building has walls, but so does a city. You can have like internal walls to sort of keep out bad feelings, and breaking those down is breaking down those barriers is a metaphor for like getting closer to people and being more vulnerable. You got any others?
Yes, there's a Great Wall of China, which is Great Wall in China.
Yeah.
There's also a
really
cell wall.
Like in plant cells?
Like in plant cells, is that what you're talking about? Yes, yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Actually, yeah, that's how we got the name for cells, because the guy had a microscope and he looked at plant cells and he saw that they look like jail cells.
Boxy, yeah.
I think. Yeah. Next word is copyright, which only has one definition, I'm fairly certain, but it is when you take a intellectual work and sort of like a concept, a image, something that is not it's some sort of concept, and you go to a government and say,
this is mine.
This is mine. Please make sure that everyone knows it's mine and no one steals it from me.
Yeah. And then also, I think with this word, and agree with me if you agree, I think we can let this world be up to interpretation for our writers. So
sure.
Let's say you're building this crazy cybernetic world, and there is this like metaphysical concept of copywriting, where you copy your physical brain chemistry and you mimic that in the digital world. That usage of the word copyright would be correct.
Sure, yeah, you can make it into a slang thing too, for sure. I think kind of hard to make copyright into slang, but I think maybe you could do it. Yeah, I would like to see it. Out. Okay, so the next word is south. So south is the cardinal direction toward the South Pole, Antarctica. And it is opposing to the North Pole. In general, there's other connotations, sort of things going south. Side. Because it's like a negative direction, like down instead of up, that it is often associated with negative things. Ducks fly south for the winter, where it's warmer.
Yes. South Pole is a knockoff JCPenney's brand. I
did not know that. You could be, I think it's called a southpaw, which just means that you're left-handed. You're a lefty snowboarder, is that right? Or am I totally making that up?
I've heard it mostly when it comes to boxing.
Okay, sure.
Someone being I believe you. Southpaw, yeah.
Southpaw. It's also a movie, apparently. I just Googled it.
About boxing.
It says, it came out in 2015. Billy the Great Hope, played by Jake Gyllenhaal, is a reigning junior middleweight boxing champion and has a lavish lifestyle, but he hits rock bottom. So,
yes.
Yes, so that's what next episode is going to be about. Yeah.
All right, nice. I can't wait to do the right thing while watching a movie.
Yeah, I definitely keep my focus like that. And last word is forum, which is a place where ideas are shared. So in the olden days, it was actually like a big open space where people would debate. Someone comes down to the center and can speak to the audience, and the audience can also speak back generally. Nowadays, it is something usually reserved for like internet forums where people can leave their comments and interact that way, like Reddit. But it can be in a bunch of different forms. I think it's interesting how like forum I don't know. It feels so archaic of a word, but it is also like so intrinsic to the internet that they kind of couldn't imagine it any other way.
Yeah, and it also means like, well, it has a core meaning, but that meaning can take on various different forms, if that makes sense.
Sure. What are some examples?
Well, yeah. So like as you said, going from the physical space of a forum to the internet space. Forums can be used for pleasure. They can be used to get shit done. So it's overall just a place where people can congregate and conversate.
Jarvis, very quickly, you have like no seconds. You've got negative seconds. Every second that you take, I'm gonna steal a dollar from you.
What? No.
Okay, so Hari, what was your story?
My story is about the Pokemon Muck and his travel south to squeeze his way through the South Berlin Wall because he came up with this special type of deodorant that is specifically used for goop type Pokemon to make sure that they're smelling good, but it won't slick off because they are like covered in gross ass goop. And he wanted to copyright that in the North, but they couldn't do that because there is no copyright laws. But in the South there are. So he left all the way from his house in North Carolina to go all the way south past the Texas border. And then as soon as he was there, he started to sell his product over Reddit, a very popular internet forum.
That's right. That's perfect. I actually changed my mind. I will not be taking dollars from you, but I will be bumming that many ciggies. So
you'll be bumming that many what?
Ciggies?
Ciggies?
Yeah.
Well, I'm sorry to tell you, but I don't smoke cigarettes.
Well, I guess we're gonna have to change that so I can bum some ciggies.
Damn, I have to start smoking again.
You have to start smoking again when you visit New York, so I can bum ciggies.
Oh, okay. That's true. Yeah, but please tell me your 100-word New York story.
So in ancient Rome, there was what? What's so fucking funny, huh? What's so funny?
Ancient Rome isn't in New York, but okay.
Well, I didn't know that I was doing it in New York. You said a New York story. That could just be a style.
Oh, you know what? Yeah, go ahead then.
Okay, so it's gonna be it's a modernist style, which means I have to like keep it short, right? In ancient Rome, a guy walked into the forum and he had a great idea, and he wanted to copyright it. This new invention that he made, and he was telling them it's just like this structure that like will keep invaders out, right? And you build it, and then people can't go through it. And people were like, do you mean like a mountain? And he was like, no. And do you mean like a hill? And he was like, no. Do you mean like a cliff? And he was like, no. Do you mean like a river? And he was like, no. I mean like a structure. It's standing up, and flat, and you put bricks. And they were like, what would you call it? And he was like, a wall. And they were like, oh, that's very interesting. We should do walls. And then it all went south because then the roof collapsed because it didn't have walls. And it fell and it crushed them.
No, not Play-Doh.
Yeah, not Play-Doh.
Wow. Well, you know what? I mean, it's bad on them for building the roof before they built the walls. But
well, they didn't know that they had to.
Exactly, yeah. And I think without their deaths, and without their beautiful schools of thought that has provided the foundation for the way that we live today, we wouldn't have walls. We probably wouldn't have ceilings either. So.
Yeah. Now that I think about it, actually, they could have built. They could have had things on pillars, but no walls.
Yeah. So just like giant pillars, no walls, but just ceiling.
Yes, just ceiling. Yeah.
I think that would be a pretty smart thing for them to have done.
To do the right thing. Oh, do you think that, like, a ceiling is technically a wall that's facing the sky?
Oh, it is. Because a wall
Is the ground... Is the ground a wall that's facing the ground?
I mean, you could say that the floor is a wall, but I would only say that if the wall skin is the same as the floor skin.
Okay. Wait, the foreskin?
The foreskin, yes.
Okay, do the right thing. Goodbye.
Foreskin.